At 0343 local time in the Barents Sea, a Russian Navy Il-38 May maritime patrol aircraft rolls wings level at 600 feet above the wave tops and drops a string of sonobuoys in a barrier pattern 14 nautical miles long. The pilot's been airborne for 4 hours. He's not out here on a routine sweep. His tasking is specific. Somewhere below that 34-degree black water, a Los Angeles-class fast-attack submarine has been running a collection mission against the Northern Fleet's newest ballistic missile submarine, the Belgorod, for the better part of 72 hours. The Il-38's acoustic processing suite begins listening. The crew knows what they're hunting. A 6,900-ton steel cylinder, 362 feet long, running at low speed on the electric drive, radiating nothing above the thermal noise floor. Except it isn't quite nothing. And the Russians have been waiting for this exact moment. The submarine is the USS Annapolis, SSN 760, a Flight 2 Los Angeles boat commissioned in 1992, upgraded with the BSY-1 combat system and the TB-29 thin-line towed array streamed aft at roughly 2,400 feet of separation, dragging through the water column like a fiber-optic nerve ending tuned to frequencies the Il-38's crew would very much like to hear. She's been trailing the Belgorod at a tracking interval of roughly 6 nautical miles since departing the Faroe Island Gap 4 days prior. The mission profile isn't aggressive. It's intelligence collection. Acoustic signatures, launch sequence timing, propulsion noise at various speeds and depths. The kind of data that takes years to replicate in a laboratory and cannot be faked. What Annapolis has been building is a targeting solution that doesn't expire. The Il-38 drops its 6th sonobuoy, a N/SSQ-53 equivalent in Russian nomenclature, a passive directional unit that sinks to preset depth and starts broadcasting. The acoustic operator in the back of the aircraft stares at his waterfall display, vertical streaks of frequency over time, looking for the line that doesn't belong. Water is never silent. There's biological noise, distant shipping, pressure differentials, the grinding of tectonic plates somewhere west of Svalbard. What he's looking for is narrowband tonal energy at a very specific frequency. The kind a reactor coolant pump produces at low flow rate. The kind you can't muffle completely even on a submarine whose crew has spent years trying. He marks a faint contact at bearing 210. 20 minutes of passive tracking gives him a rough solution. Not a fire control solution. A localization box. The Russians have practiced this intercept geometry in the Barents multiple times over the past 2 years, adjusting their timing and spacing parameters based on lessons learned from previous contacts. This particular barrier configuration reflects recent doctrine adjustments made at Submarine Fleet Headquarters in Severomorsk. The sonobuoy positions themselves according to pre-computed grid coordinates fed into the aircraft's navigation system, ensuring minimal gaps in acoustic coverage. The Annapolis sonar chief hears the sonobuoys before the Il-38 crew hears her. That's the asymmetry the entire mission depends on. The TB-29 array picks up the water entry transients as each buoy sinks, the acoustic ping of a float mechanism deploying, the click of a battery pack engaging at depth. He calls it to the con, possible barrier bearing north 6 to 8 units, spacing approximately 2,000 yards. The officer of the deck marks the time. The commanding officer is already in the control room. He doesn't need anyone to explain what a freshly laid barrier across his projected track means. The Il-38 found the box. Now they're building a fence around it. Standard procedure in this situation is to go deep and slow and let the Russian aircraft exhaust its remaining sonobuoy load. An Il-38 carries enough for a single extended barrier deployment with very little reserve. Time is on the submarine's side in theory. Diesel-electric sprint capacity on the Il-38 means 4 to 6 hours on station before it has to recover to Olenia Bay. The crew on Annapolis has been at battle stations for 19 minutes. What the commanding officer is weighing is not whether to evade, it's whether the evade profile will be seen. Because there's a second contact. A Staragushchi-class corvette, Project 20,380, 2,200 tons, came over the horizon bearing 340 at 22 knots, 31 nautical miles northeast. Her hull-mounted sonar is active, MGK 335. Platina, narrow beam, high-powered, she's pinging. The corvette's presence transforms this from a simple aircraft intercept into a coordinated multi-platform prosecution. Surface ships with active sonar can maintain contact far longer than air assets constrained by fuel and endurance limitations. The Northern Fleet commander who orchestrated this intercept has positioned his assets to create a tactical bind with no obvious escape route. Active sonar in open ocean is a commitment. Every pulse broadcasts the searching ship's position to everything within 40 nautical miles. It also gives a submarine crew a precise bearing to the threat and enough geometry to maneuver away from it efficiently. The Staragushchi's captain knows that. He's not hunting blind, he's herding. The Il-38 has localized the contact from above. The corvette is the anvil. The sonobuoy barrier is the backstop. What they're trying to do is force a sprint, a burst of power that would lift Annapolis's acoustic signature well above ambient and confirm the contact for weapons targeting. If she runs, they hear her. If she holds, the barrier fills in around her. The geometry is uncomfortable and tightening by the minute. The commanding officer orders ahead 1/3 on the electric drive and puts the rudder over to 210. Not a sprint, a slow drift, angling away from the barrier's probable southern anchor point at the lowest noise speed the boat can manage. The navigator plots the track. At 1/3 speed, the separation between Annapolis and the corvette closes by roughly half a knot net. It takes longer, but it's quieter. Everything on that submarine that can be secured is secured. The machinery spaces go to ultra-quiet. The cook stops working. The ventilation system drops to minimum flow. Crew members with no assigned watch station sit still. A 6,900-ton submarine attempting to become background noise. On the Il-38, the acoustic operator is still tracking the faint tonal. It's moved. Bearing drift puts the contact now southwest of the barrier's midpoint. He passes the update to the corvette over data link. The corvette adjusts course 15 degrees south and increases to 26 knots. Her bow sonar pulses again. The interval between pings is dropping. 14 seconds. 11 seconds. She's prosecuting. On Annapolis, every pulse registers on the BQQ-5D hull array like a camera flash in a dark room. The executive officer calls the interval to the captain. 11 seconds. 8. The corvette is 19 miles out now and closing at a combined rate that puts her overhead in under 40 minutes if nothing changes. The decision point is not dramatic. It doesn't feel like a movie. The captain tells the officer of the deck to take her to 800 feet and increase to 2/3. Not a sprint, a controlled descent into a layer. The Barents has a well-defined thermal layer this time of year at approximately 650 feet, a temperature gradient sharp enough to bend sound the way a prism bends light. Below that layer, the corvette's active sonar loses coherence. The pulses still arrive. They arrive distorted, scattered across a broader bearing spread, too ambiguous to support a fire control solution. Above 650 feet, Annapolis is a contact. Below it, she's a probability cloud. The descent takes 4 minutes. The crew feels the pressure change in their ears. The thermal layer hits the hull array like stepping through a door. On the other side, the corvette's pinging sounds like someone banging a pipe 2 streets over. Still audible, no longer useful. The sonar chief marks the layer crossing at 0419. The towed array streams below the layer behind them, still listening, now operating in an environment the Il-38 sonobuoys sitting above the layer cannot effectively interrogate. The geometry has flipped. The hunters are now working against physics that Annapolis chose and they didn't. Thermal layers in the Barents are seasonal phenomena, present and predictable during certain months but absent in others. The commanding officer's knowledge of the local oceanography, accumulated from multiple deployments and years of study, gives Annapolis an advantage that no surface ship can counter through speed or search tactics alone. The Il-38 makes 2 more passes on the barrier. The acoustic operator reacquires a faint possible contact once, southwest, moving, but the signal is broken and the bearing rate won't support a solution. After 22 minutes, he logs it as a possible subsurface contact, non-confirming. The corvette maintains active prosecution for another 31 minutes at reduced speed, pinging into a layer that's eating her energy and giving nothing back. At 05:12 local, she secures active sonar. A few minutes after that, the Il-38 calls bingo fuel and turns northwest toward Olenia. The barrier is already drifting with the current. Sonobuoys exhausted, batteries dying one by one in the dark. Below the layer, Annapolis holds course at 800 feet for another 90 minutes before the commanding officer brings her back up to periscope depth for a comms window. The TB-29 reacquires the Belgorod at bearing 015, range estimated 22 nautical miles. She's still on the same base course, still running the same slow transit. The collection mission resumes at 06:34 local time. The acoustic signature library the crew has been building didn't stop accumulating when the Il-38 showed up. Every minute of prosecution data the Russians generated also told Annapolis exactly how the Northern Fleet prosecutes a contact, what sensors they use in what sequence, what intervals they prefer, and where the coverage gaps are. You can't hunt a submarine without also teaching it how you hunt. The Belgorod continues northwest. Annapolis trails at 6 nautical miles. The Staragushchi-class corvette is now 47 nautical miles behind them, receding. At Severomorsk, somebody on the Northern Fleet staff is writing an after-action summary that will describe an inconclusive prosecution of a possible submarine contact in grid square 73 north. The word possible will appear 3 times. At a headquarters well south of the Arctic Circle, a different set of analysts is reading the comms the Annapolis transmitted at 06:34 and the acoustic files that came with them. The water above the thermal layer is empty now. A few sonobuoys still drift on the surface, radio transmitters silent, batteries flat, already sinking. The Il-38 landed at Olenia at 05:51. The corvette secured active sonar and resumed its transit. Down at 800 feet, the only sound is the Belgorod's reactor coolant pump turning at low speed and the Annapolis recording every cycle.